everyone, welcome back to the podcast A Girl's Guide to the Music Business, the place where we celebrate women who work in the music industry with me, your host, Shay Green. From live events to publishing, we are giving you the ins and outs of what it's like to be a woman in music, with helpful advice given along the way. On today's episode, we are in a slightly different location than usual as we are back for our two-part season finale, where we are travelling to London to meet this week's guest, who is artist manager Jo Howarth. Jo is currently working for Attention Management, where she looks after artists like Belters Only, Jazzy, Mark Ralph and Confidence Man. In this episode, Jo told us about how her journey in the music industry began, how she came into artist management and everything she's had to overcome to get to where she is now. As always, let us know your thoughts about today's discussion. You can find How Does She Do It on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube at How Does She Do It Pod. Thank you for listening and on with the episode. Welcome to the show, Jo. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. So to start off the questions, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and where your journey within the music industry began.
Sure. So to start at the beginning, I guess, my first job was with a company called Tap Management. So they look after, at the time they looked after Dua Lipa, Ellie Goulding, Lana Del Rey. They had the most amazing roster. And it was one of those ones where it was a real baptism of fire. I got to see everything straight off the bat. They're some of the best managers in the industry and I got to watch how all of that happens. So that was amazing. As a first job, I don't think they get better than that. I was just awestruck, honestly. In that role, I worked with bands, I worked with Rat Boy and I worked with top liners, which are the people that write melodies and lyrics in sessions, in writing sessions. So I looked after Chelsea Grimes and at the time she was a professional football player as well as being a top liner, so I got to do all of that TV stuff and she now is like in pundit land, so she's a football pundit, so that opened up the TV world to me and I was like, oh, I really like this. So that was a huge privilege. It was such an amazing role to start out with. I then went freelance for a bit and I got to work with Liam Payne and Girl in Red, two completely different projects. But again, very, very interesting. Girl in Red was my first experience of working on like an indie label and Liam obviously exists in a world of his own, so that was a lesson in like stardom and that kind of thing. And then from there, I didn't really enjoy freelance life, it has to be said, and I went into a company called YMU, where I worked primarily with James Arthur, who is definitely up there with my favourite artists that I've worked with. And I also worked with Gary Barlow, which is obviously a real privilege. So that's sort of my how I got to here.
So it'd be good to know as well where you're at in your music career now.
So now, these days, I work with a company called Attention Management. So there's three of us, so a new addition third as well. So it's been two of us for a very long time. So I have a boss who is amazing and he runs the company, but I'm given a lot of responsibility to sort of make of it what I want to. The roster is absolutely amazing. It's all sort of dance based and really, really good fun. So I work with Belters Only and Jazzy, who are two Irish dance artists who are signed to Polydor. And then I also work with an Australian dance band, like indie dance band called Confidence Man, who are so fun. Any Confidence Man fans listening to this will know exactly what I mean, but it's just the most fun working in their world. Is just brilliant. So yeah, that's now. I also look after a producer called Mark Ralph, who is proper staple of the music industry. That makes it sound really old. He's not old. That's very rude. But he's one of those A-list producers everyone knows about and trusts, and he's very well regarded by the labels. So I love working with producers as well. So that's something different, and I really love working with Mark.
Amazing. It's really good to hear how it started and brought us forward in time to where you're with now.
Yeah.
So now it's time for our awkward scenario. So this is where we'll be giving you, the listeners, Jo's going to be telling us her awkward scenario, and then you'll find out at the end of the show how she resolves it. So yeah, Jo, if you want to go ahead and tell us your awkward scenario.
So definitely as an artist manager, there is almost an awkward scenario every day, of various scales, none of which are ever, crisis worthy, but at the time some of them feel very crisis worthy. My awkward scenario in particular, I guess, is more one that is relevant in just about any industry, particularly relevant for women as well, but it's about asking for a pay rise. Because when you start in music, you often start on tuppence, and you very quickly take on absolutely everything, and then you have to sit down and say, look, I need this, and that's a very awkward scenario. No one enjoys that, but it has to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone's got bills to pay for, and
yeah, now more than ever as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So carrying on with the questions, as a woman working in music management, is there anything kind of like you've had to personally overcome? And if you have, like, how did you do it?
I think for me, I mean, you hear it, and I have heard from very good friends, like all sorts of horror stories. I mean, I don't have anything quite like that. I've definitely been spoken down to, but it's not a regular occurrence. And I am one that snaps back, so I would advise snapping back. But I guess for me it was always that thing of stepping up from feeling like an assistant. For a very long time I don't feel like I've been filling an assistant role, even if I've had a title of, initially it was an assistant, and then it became day-to-day. And ultimately a day-to-day is a manager, and I believe should be given the title of a manager. So yeah, it's sort of just stepping out of that bit where you are the assistant and someone else is junior. But I'm not saying that I've stepped away from that completely. I most definitely haven't. I have a boss, he's fantastic, and he is very much a boss. But he is brilliant in the sense that he encourages me to sort of step up and be an artist manager, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, amazing. So in terms as well of like work-life balance in the music industry, how important do you feel that is to have?
Oh, for me, it's like the most important thing, but it's only because I've been in a situation where I haven't had that. So all the way through the pandemic, I had very little separation between work and not work. And so for me now, I have gone completely the other way, and I've moved out of London and I live in a little village, which lots of my colleagues and friends think is hilarious. And I'm often the butt of the jokes with my, oh, we're in the village, kind of jokes. I have a dog who is like my sanity and like an hour out of, I get to go for a walk and I get to put my phone down for a bit. So that feels like a privilege. So for me, it's like the most important thing. It's no fun whatsoever to wake up and be on emails. I mean, we all do it, especially working with Australian artists where their day has happened throughout my night. So that's a bit tough, but there has to be some sort of divide. And for me, I love getting on the train, spending my hour on the train, and then I get home and it feels like something different.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I think it's for a lot of people with COVID, like if you were working from home especially, your home became your workplace.
Yeah, well, I quite like that. So working from home for me has been a massive weight lifted. Like just to not have to be. And there's no reason why we need to be in the office all the time, especially because we're such a small team. We sort of make sure we're in on the same days, and that works for us. And it's so much nicer to have a day where you can work from home and get your life admin done, because let's be honest, if we're in the office Monday to Friday, you're not able to get in your life admin. So yeah, that's important to me, for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, like exactly like you said, just getting home, putting the laptop, not
all the time, like it still has to be done, but it just means that you're
ensuring you're making that time for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So just kind of based on the last question of like a work-life balance, how do you feel, he said, with women in the music industry? Do you feel there's like a difficulty when they go on like maternity leave or they fall pregnant, when they then kind of try to return to the music industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me to speak on that, I think, because obviously I'm not there. However, I've got friends and colleagues and people that I know who have absolutely bossed it, who have had kids and got back to work and managed to juggle all of those things. But then I guess there are such shocking statistics about women progressing in the music industry to like more senior roles, and women sort of above 30 in the music industry. Like it sort of tailors off. I'm sure if you were to look it up, you'd be able to find whatever that shocking statistic is. But that's surely got to be because of that. Certainly on the live side, I mean, it's almost, you couldn't tour if you had kids. So it explains why the live side is so male dominated. I'm not talking about agencies and stuff like that, because obviously they have the more corporate structure that enables you to do those things. But in terms of female tour managers, or the ones that are doing it are killing it, but there's a cut-off for them, isn't there? There's a bit of a glass ceiling that, but I'm not sure what you can really do about that. There's not much you can really, apart from, yeah, but I guess that would get me on a political rant about the man's role in the household, but there we go.
Yeah.
We can go down that lane if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of like expectation, or the man can get off to work and the woman has to stay at home.
Yeah,
It's a frustrating expectation, isn't it?
I don't think so much it's an expectation, it is just biology and the way it works, and there isn't really much you can do about it, but I think the other difficulty is like, you know, some people will work freelance, and if you're freelance, you might not always be able to give yourself that time off, or But that's a hard thing in itself, to not know where your money's coming from each time, and having to work contract to contract, or that's I mean, hats off to people that do that, because I tried it and I didn't like it.
Yeah, and just think of like the practicality of people with kids, like you just said, running contract to contract, not being sure.
Well, again, like we say, especially in this climate where money's tight for everybody and things are changing.
So do you have any highlights of any work that you've done in recent years?
I mean, I feel very lucky in that what I do has lots of highlights. Like, there's a lot to celebrate. It's a very sort of up and down world. But I mean, even this week, we've been told that Belters are going to have a massive billboard in London. You get to have a real high out of winning something like that, like, you know, getting that over the line. But definitely going to artist shows is a mad highlight. I mean, it's a real privilege. Like, I think people sometimes forget that it is a job, and it's celebrated like it's something that it is a privilege. But at the same time, there are definite perks. Yeah, for sure.
Who's been your favourite artist that you've kind of had a pinch me moment with?
Oh, I don't know that I do that. I don't know that I believe. I don't know about that, actually. I guess I have to say that my mum was chuffed when I was working with Gary, and it was nice to make my mum proud.
Yeah.
My mum's never understood what I do before, but when it was Gary Barlow, she seemed to know exactly what I was doing and tell everybody. We did a Christmas special for Gary that was on ITV that was really good fun to film, and when that came out, and it felt like a really big thing to Gary fans, that felt nice. That was a real high, yeah, for sure.
Oh, lovely. Was it like because you've obviously mentioned getting into the scope of like TV and stuff, was it interesting to see the crossover happen?
I guess so, but like the TV world it does cross over with music quite a lot, so there's quite a few things that I've been really privileged to work on. I did a series of The Voice Kids, which I absolutely loved, and just like I looked after one of the judges at the time, and it was just really fun to be part of that, and so wholesome. Like they're literally between 7 and like 13, and they were so talented. So that was really fun, wholesome.
It's just always good to hear, like how frequent that crossover really is.
I do like that side of things. That's always fun. Yeah.
Do you have any like words of advice that you kind of recommend to our listeners out there trying to break into the music industry or breaking into artist management?
Do you know what? Literally, as we were setting up to film this, I was looking at Instagram, as you do, and I was looking at a quote from a guy called Elijah. I'm assuming he's a guy. Actually, it does say he, him in his bio. And he posts little, just little advice snippets. They're like tiny little art. They're all yellow squares. And he was talking about how people need to team up more artistically. And he mentioned the Fred Again show that was this weekend in Madison Square Gardens with Skrillex and Fortet. And something that I really liked that he had posted, I'm just trying to find it, it was, you didn't get here on your own. If you feel like you did, make sure someone else doesn't have to. And I really like that. And actually, I do feel a bit like that. I had people that helped me out, but I didn't have, lots of my friends had family in the industry and people that could help them out. I felt like I didn't have that. And also, although I had the geographical privilege of being near London, I also have the privilege of being white and British and all of those things that makes me, you know, basically a genetic lottery winner. But I didn't feel like I had people that were doing that for me all the time. Certainly some were, and they're going to be listening to this going, I hope she means me. I do. I just feel like lengthening that table, as the saying goes. I hope that is the saying now that I've said it. But I just feel like helping other people out. So that's why I feel really passionately about having work experience people in our office, and I have a mentee who's a brilliant artist manager herself, and I just feel really passionately about that. So my advice to other people is to help other people.
Yeah, honestly, it's great words of advice. And do you always get quite positive feedback from like the work placements and?
I think so. I think that because I did an internship myself, and I wouldn't have got that job at Tap Management had I not. So I feel like you do need someone to sort of help you out and say, look, come in here, learn how this works, learn how that works. And then it's something to go on your CV and say, I've got these skills because I've done this, this and this. I mean, it's that first foot in the door, and that's the hardest bit of all of it to get, to be honest. So I hope so. I hope it's good for people. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I think it is that moment of trying to be bold and just asking and just putting yourself out there.
No, it's not easy to get the first one, but yeah.
Now we're going to kind of reveal our mystery question.
Right.
So I'm just going to find it and get it out. So this question would have been written by the previous interviewee. Okay. It's a little bit of a chain that we've got going on.
Right.
So our mystery question is, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Oh, really depends what day of the week you ask me. What's happened that day? On a bad day, I'll be dog walking. I'll be nowhere near the music industry. But hey, I'm having a good time at the minute. I'll say that I'll be doing more of this. I love the clients that I'm working with at the minute. I'm having so much fun. I literally cannot wait for festival season because I've got the maddest summer lined up with all of my artists playing different things all over, and I just love that keeps me going. So I can't actually see myself stepping away from it. I need that hit of summer each year. It's just getting through the bit between, but yeah, we have so many cool releases coming up. We're working with amazing labels, so yeah, hopefully doing more of this. I hope. That'd be lovely.
Amazing. Sounds like the festival work is
oh my
good.
God, yeah, I just love it. It's been my happy place since I was about 15. So yeah, going back each year to all the favourites is really important to me. I've just bought a camper van as well so that I can go and live it up bougie in these festivals. I'll be at Glastonbury like, guys, come straighten your hair in my camper van.
At least you get
I'll make you a bacon sandwich.
Yeah, much more cosier than a 2-person tent.
Yes, definitely.
Do you have any favourite festivals?
This is not a popular answer, but I grew up near Reading. And Reading Festival was like my first festival. I went when I was 15 with my best friend. We went back last year, and it was like 10 years since we'd taken this last photo, like the photo we took when we were first there. So Reading is kind of my happy place. Like, I just love it. It's just, I know it like the back of my hand. I walk through the guest area and I know everybody. It's just really wholesome. I really love Reading.
Yeah, I've got a soft spot for that. Was my first music festival.
And I've done Leeds as well, and I will admit that Leeds is better, but I still love Reading.
It's the soft spot for the Reading Festival,
Absolutely. Well, and I just get on the train and I'm home in 5 minutes. It's great.
Yeah. It is the comfort of that. It's the same for me. I'm really close to Reading, so it was like, just get the train.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's such a nice festival. I really like it.
Yeah, amazing.
It does make me feel old, and I'm only 26. I look around, I'm like, I'm ancient now.
So many young people go to Reading Festival.
Yeah, it seems to be that one. You pass your A-levels and you go to Reading, but we all did it. Like, I did it myself, so fair play.
Absolutely. So if you're happy to, you can write the next question for our next interviewee.
I'm up for that.
So let's give you this bit of paper and pen.
I know what I'm going to say, but I've got to think about how to phrase it.
Yeah, that's cool.
There we go.
Cool, amazing, lovely. So that will be hidden away and revealed in our next episode. So the final part of the show is where you're going to reveal to us your awkward scenario answer. So if you take it away.
Well, I don't know if it's like an answer. I guess it's just how I might have dealt with the situation, because the situation we were talking about was about asking for a pay rise. And for me, I've always sort of gathered the information I need. I've had this conversation a few times, and I've always gathered the information that I needed to back up my role within the company. In a management company, the main part of that is, I guess, the income that the clients that you are working with are bringing to the company. And I have never gone in and said, I need this. I've just said, look, I'd like to open a conversation about this. If we can't talk about it now, if the time isn't right to talk about it now, can we talk about it on this date? And then when I was put in a position where I felt like I wasn't being given the opportunity to step up, and I wasn't being matched with what I was worth in terms of my pay, I actually walked away, which was a very bold thing to do at the time. But I'm a big advocate for it now in hindsight, because it was what was right to do. It was really gutting, but it was the right thing to do at the time. So yeah, that's my resolve for my awkward scenario.
That's a really good resolve, and I think like the fact is it didn't stop you from getting to where you are now.
No, I'm in a better position now than had I stayed where I was, and that was the factor that meant that I had to make that decision, was that I was going to stay where I was otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like when you mentioned as well about like the approach of it, just being like you wanted to have this open, honest conversation.
It's a terrifying conversation to have, and I will like shake all the way through it, and I haven't ever got over that, even now as someone who has the experience and the know-how to back up what I'm asking for. Like it's still a scary conversation to have, and I think it always will be for anybody, but it's one of those things. And as managers as well, we do have to have scary conversations, so I have to learn not to shake. Or at least shake afterwards.
Have the panic after.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what we were saying earlier, cost of living crisis. People just can't be expected to live on those wages forever.
And it is difficult working in music because we're so passionate about what we do. There is scope to be able to be underpaid. Like it's quite a common thing, I would say. So yeah, it's definitely relevant to this industry, but also applicable to just about every industry, I imagine.
Yeah, so it's a really good awkward scenario and a really good bit of advice given out there.
I hope so.
Thank you. I'm sure our listeners will appreciate it. So, but amazing. That does kind of bring the show towards its end. So thank you so much, Jo, for coming on.
It's all right, all good.
Yeah, thank you for letting us come to your London office. It was a nice little venture out for us all. So yeah, amazing. Thank you. We have now reached the end of our show. Thank you all for watching and listening. Do make sure you come back for the rest of the episodes, a new one dropping every other week. We'd love to know your thoughts and feelings about today's discussion. You can find How Does She Do It on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube at How Does She Do It Pod. Let's all celebrate the great women shaping the music business. From us here at How Does She Do It, see you soon for another exciting episode.